just do that baby cookie. Ooh, sorry, y'all. I've been crying a lot, so then my nose got stuffy. I was really frustrated last night, but it's a new day. Even though I just got to crying. For different reasons, but I feel better. I'm gonna hold you guys because I don't have no clothes on. So I just want the end of Psalm 99. For some reason, just made me start thinking. I also haven't highlighted my Bible in a while. I feel like I might go back and do that on some other time. I don't know, I feel better when my Bible is highlighted. And to think what's about a time I didn't even want to touch this Bible with highlights. Anyway. I'll probably just read through everything. But I don't know. I don't want to do that today. It just says, exalt the Lord our God and worship at his holy hill. For the Lord our God is holy. That's the end of Psalm 99. So that's Psalm 99 verse 9. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. That nose is clogged, girl. Anyways, okay. Okay. So, exalt the Lord our God and worship at his holy hill. For the Lord our God is holy. And I guess the reason I'm making the video today, I just had a thought about, I underlined holy hill and put where God dwells. Because a lot of times in the Bible, people walk up on this specific really high hill. And outside of the promised land, for the people in the Bible that were promised to make it to the promised land, and Moses got them to the promised land, and he didn't get to go into it, but he went up there on the hill, and God basically told him that, like, your time is up, but thank you, kind of situation. And that's where people went to talk to him, because that's where God chose to dwell, in that specific area. As I don't remember the exact names because I'm blanking on the names of it, but I do remember like the story part of like reading it. So it made me think that specific hill where God chose to, like, you know, declare it's like his spot or whatever. It just made me think about how you should go to that place. But then I also looked up the definition of exalt again. So exalt basically means to put something in high regard. So when you put something in high regard, you are praising it, worshiping it, and the Bible is telling you to worship his holy hill. So like when you exalt something, you put it before anything else. Like, it's not, for the lack of a better term, you prioritize it more than anything. So like when you have things in life that matter to you, and that's just like something that means it's something that's very important to you, that has in your eyes, like, how do I say this? For lack of a word that I like in my head, things make sense, but I'm not sure about the words of how to verbally express things that are in my head. That's been a reoccurring thing. Like, I'll have a thought in my mind, and I don't really I'm not sure if I'm like getting my point across how I want to. But putting something in higher regards, it's like, obviously you're putting it on a pedestal, but that's not the word that I want to use. It's like the way you think of something. Like, it has to do with your perspective of your priorities, but it's more than priorities. Like, viewing highly. For some reason, I thought about Trey. I mean, I never think about him a lot anyway, but like, it reminded me of like, I told him I think very highly of him. Always. And then I guess that maybe that was put on my mind for a reason. When you're exalting something, you're thinking very highly of it, right? So, if you think very highly of the place that God dwells, I don't know how to go with that. I think I'll just try to come back to that thought. Maybe. It's like whenever I press play, the thought that I originally had just gets jumbled. And I don't like that. Because I just read this. Like, just read it. And I was just like, oh. And my mind just started going places. Because what I feel like it's saying, it literally says, like, it says exalt the Lord our God. Right? Think very highly of the God. So, uplift God. Right? Think very highly of God and worship at His holy hill. I feel like it sounds weird, but like my original thought, it's kind of like giving like meet God where He is at. Because God meets you where you're at. But the two are different. Like, God meets you where you're at because where He's at is higher than where you're at. But you trying to meet God where God's at is what gets you for God to meet you where you're at. Even though God will meet you where you're at in general. But like, it's about like making an effort, if that makes any sense. Like, I feel like this verse is telling you, I guess meeting where He's at in a different sense of where God, the way that God meets you where you're at. God meets you where you're at to try to help you and like basically understand the shoe that you're in. Because putting a high expectation for you to just be perfect when God knows you're not perfect isn't fair to do. And God is a righteous God. God is a fair God. So it would be unfair to have these high expectations of you knowing that you're not there yet, right? You're not in this position to like, it's so funny as I'm saying this, I feel like maybe it's something I need to, it's also a message to myself, but it would be unfair of God to have a higher expectation for you to just be doing better, knowing that you don't have that power to do so on your own. So if God is a fair and just God, that wouldn't make sense to do. So if you are placing these expectations on your life to just be this perfect person. It's unrealistic because that's something that you can't do by yourself, and God would never ask you to do by yourself because obviously that's something you would be incapable of doing, and God knows that. So if He were to judge you, or like, well, why aren't you being this perfect? Da 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 da. This isn't, you're not doing XYZ. That wouldn't happen. So God has to meet you where you are at, on your, like, basically come down to your level to assist you, because it would be unfair to hold higher expectations for you to reach when you're not, on a certain level of your life. But meeting God where God's at, I feel like it's coming into a place of holiness. If that makes sense. It makes sense in my head. So God chooses this hill to reside, right? You go to this hill, you are choosing to go, be with God ultimately, right? So if you're choosing to go to this place, you are choosing to be with God. You are choosing to meet God where God is. I feel like meeting God where God's at is a different sense of God meeting you where you're at. You meeting God where God's at is choosing to, have a relationship with God, right? Is what I feel like that is. But God meeting you where you're at is trying to help you get that relationship with Him in your own understanding and in your pace and in your lifetime and where you are, right? It would be unfair to judge you at your potential if you're not, if you haven't stepped into your place of power or positioning. It would be fair to judge you by that standard if you aren't in that position yet. You have to go to God and ask for these things and ask for this relationship and work in that relationship to get there. And then once you get there, obviously you can be judged by that. But obviously God would equip you first, because God wouldn't basically have you into a test and not be prepared for it. But in the Bible it says worship that hill. So basically giving high regards, praising, thinking highly of, and acting. I feel like worship is basically the action of exalting in my mind right now. Worshipping is putting those highly perceived values into action. If you think highly of God, you have to act as such, and that is done through worship. Speaking to people about how good He is, speaking to Him about how good He is, behaving in such a manner. A lot of, I'd say people, but like Christian based things that I watch and follow and kind of like take note and value out of, that'll make me think more than what I would have thought beforehand. People that might seem genuine, give me good points. You don't know God if you are behaving, unkindly to people, especially if you're kind, because you are instructed as a believer and as a child of Christ and as a child of God that you are supposed to be kind to people because God instructed you to. God was kind, and Jesus was kind to a lot of people, and knew that these people don't really know better. And most of us, if not all of us, don't know better. I don't know better. There are certain things that I might be aware of, but there are lots of things that, I'm not aware of. And so someone with an even closer relationship with God would obviously want to, they're not required to give me grace, but they are required to, speak kindly to me and give whatever message they need and help. Because if they claim to know God, they would know that God would want his people to treat people the way that he treats you. So if there's someone being unkind to you, and you just can't stand this person, you don't treat them like you can't stand them. You be kind to them, because how else will those people know God? Because God is a person, obviously, that God is a just God and a fair God, but God has compassion to people, and can be comforting and loving and all of those nice things that some people have never seen and need to have. And even though God's everywhere, God still uses people to demonstrate his love and his power. So people like that need you to basically be an example of, wow, I've been unkind to this person, and yet this person has been kind to me, and I don't deserve it. What did I do to have that, connection and relationship with this person who's still giving me the benefit of the doubt and grace, because God does those things with us. And so that could actually spark up, thoughts in people like that, and get them to change or get them to reconsider what they're doing. And I feel like maybe God does that. God does that on purpose to, provoke those things. And once those happen, in result, you get a lot of people that turn their life over to Christ for that. I'm currently in the process of trying to turn my life over to Christ. I just don't think I'm doing it right. But there's also nothing saying that I'm not. I know I'm a child of God. I just feel like I don't know. Wish I had more knowledge of things. That's what it is. So, for me, I have class in a few. One thing I like about my Android is that it doesn't cut off my videos when my alarm goes off, which I appreciate. But that's about it. But just for fun, Psalm 100, an invitation to praise God cheerfully. Make a joyful noise unto the Lord, all ye lands. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before his presence with singing. Know ye that the Lord, he is God. It is he that hath made us, and not we ourselves. We are his people, and the sheep of his pasture. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving, and into his courts with praise. Be thankful unto him, and bless his name, for the Lord is good. His mercy is everlasting, and his truth endureth to all generations. I'm gonna reread that because I was just reading it to y'all. But have a great day. Bye.